Today, I'm very excited because we are kicking off a week worth of training sessions on anxiety. And we're going to start by talking about worrying. Now, one thing before I jump into the training for today, if you are brand new to Mindset Reset, if you've just stumbled onto this video, it doesn't matter where you are in the world, it doesn't matter if this is the first time you've ever seen a video by me, you can absolutely jump into this free program at any time. There's no race, there's no test, there's nothing to buy. All you do is go to melrobbins.com/mindset reset. You'll get on our email list. We'll send you a link to all the videos. We'll send you a link to any of the PDFs that we've offered in this course for free so that you can do this course, this life-changing course and program at your own pace, okay? But that's how you get on the list. Now let's get into the training. So we're kicking off Anxiety Week, and I'm going to be talking to you about the connection between worrying and anxiety, and how it is critical if you want to quiet your anxiety, if you want to stop worrying, if you want to get control over what you're thinking about. It's going to begin with a habit that you have, that somebody else trained you, that you've gotten really good at this habit. And you know what the habit is? It's the habit of worrying. We all do it. We're all guilty of it. We're all guilty of, sorry, let me just move that a little bit. We're all guilty of worrying about things that are beyond our control, worrying about things that doesn't matter, worrying about things that we shouldn't care about. Sorry, I've got the streaming lights anymore. Hold on, let me just ask Mandy a question. Worrying about all kinds of things that you shouldn't worry about. And it becomes a habit. It becomes a default way of thinking. And so in order to kick off Anxiety Week, I want to explain the connection between worrying and why that impacts anxiety. And now, since we're talking about anxiety, I have to be very clear about something, okay? I am not a therapist. I am an individual who struggled personally with anxiety for more than 2 decades. I took Zoloft, which was a lifesaver, and I strongly believe in trying medication when a professional believes that you are so in a hole mentally that medication will give you the ability to start to claw your way out of that hole. I have learned so much about anxiety because of my own struggles, and 5 years ago, I trained myself to be a deliberate thinker, just like I'm training you to be a deliberate thinker in this program. And through everything that I am about to teach you, and all of the strategies that you're about to learn, I learned all of these by researching anxiety. And I road tested them on myself while I was still in therapy. And I then started going off of my medication. And as my mindset reset and as my thinking patterns became more positive and stronger and healthier, I was able to completely cure myself of anxiety. And I say that with the utmost of relief and confidence. And I have also gone on to use these exact same techniques that I'm going to teach you to help my children deal with their anxieties. I've written extensively about anxiety in the 5-Second Rule book, which is right behind me. We've sold almost 1 million copies of that book. It is the #1 self-published audiobook in the history of Audible. I'm so proud of it. And I speak at length about anxiety and using the 5-Second Rule to cure yourself of anxiety, okay? But I need to make it very clear that these training sessions are in no way, a substitute for getting professional help. If you have the kind of clinical anxiety or you suffer from an anxiety disorder, it is paramount that you seek professional help from a therapist one-on-one, that you try remarkable therapies. I'm going to say it wrong, but it's EDRM or ERDM, which is the rapid eye movement therapy. Incredibly helpful. And so don't be a hero. Don't go off your meds cold. Don't quit therapy because you think that this live training program is the answer. This live training program is a step. And this live training program for the next week in particular, while we talk about anxiety, you're going to be introduced to tools that are grounded in research and tools that have worked for millions of people and tools that you can take back to your therapist or take back to whatever counseling you get to help you become a deliberate thinker, which will help you quiet your anxiety, get control of it, and then ultimately cure it with the help of a professional if you have an anxiety disorder. So that said, please, please, please listen to everything that I'm about to tell you and try it, okay? Please try it because this stuff works if you practice it. And again, quieting anxiety, it's not an event. It's not a one and done. This is a process that you are going to repeat over and over and over again because the connection between anxiety and your mindset begins with your habit of worrying. We have a question from Twitter. Is worrying the same as overthinking? If you're overthinking about positive stuff and keeping yourself in an excited state, no, it's not. If you're overthinking and the overthinking is you spinning scenarios in your mind that are negative, yes. Overthinking is another word when it's negative for worrying on overdrive. It means that you worry in loops. And you keep repeating the worry over and over and over as if you were washing the same load of laundry over and over and over again. And so we're starting with the habit of worrying about things that don't matter, worrying about things that you can't control, worrying about things that haven't happened yet, worrying about things that are far off in the future. When you start to train yourself to think about things that are not in your control, or think about things that are statistically likely never to happen, that is when you can get into trouble. And that's why we're going to start with worrying. You see, worrying is when you allow your mind to default on autopilot and think about things that don't serve you. Think about things that are outside of your control. I'm going to give you an example that's very recent in my life. So I don't know, there were a bunch of you that noticed in the live streams that were on January 6th and January 7th, and I think January 5th. Many of you noticed that I had a lot of discoloration on my neck and I had what appeared to be a lump. And my own dermatologist pointed it out to me that I had a lump that was kind of like right here. Now, the second that somebody says lump, what are your thoughts default to automatically? The second somebody says you got a lump on your neck, cancer, of course. I've got some sort of disease that's going to kill me. And so what do I do when my thoughts go there? Well, then I start touching it and I start poking at it and I start pinching at it. And then I start asking everybody, do you see this lump on my neck? And asking people if they see a lump, that's a proactive action. That's a good idea. But the bad thing to do is to let your thoughts then default to thinking that you have cancer, to thinking that there's something wrong, to thinking that you're going to die, to thinking that this is going to be a major problem, to thinking that there's an emergency right now. And the problem with allowing your thoughts to go that way is because when you start to think about things, first of all, it's outside of my control if this is cancer or not. It's outside of my control right now if this is going to kill me. It's outside of my control right now whether or not a week from now when I go see my doctor, they're going to diagnose what is in my neck. Full disclosure, I saw my doctor. There's nothing wrong with me, okay? So if you allow your thoughts to constantly drift to the worst case scenario, what's going to happen as your thoughts spiral is your body is going to pick up on the fact that your thoughts are negative. Your body's going to pick up on the fact that your brain is worried. And what's going to happen if you allow your thoughts to spiral the way that mine started to about this silly little lump on my neck is that you will start to trigger agitation in your body. So when you start thinking negative things up here, you're going to start feeling negative things in here. You might feel a pit in your stomach. You might actually start to sweat. Your heart might start to race. Your throat might get tight. Your hands might get clammy. These are all telltale signs that you have now crossed from simply worrying in your mind to feeling physical agitation, which is anxiety. So that's the relationship between worrying about something, which is thinking negative thoughts about things that are outside your control, and anxiety, which is when those worries become physical agitation in your body caused by your thoughts. That's it. And so it's critical for you, if you have anxiety, if your kids have anxiety, if you're a chronic worrier, if you lay awake at night thinking about all these things that you need to do, we're going to go through all of this and all kinds of things that you can do to start to address this. It is critical that you understand that there is a connection between the day-to-day anxiety that many of you feel. We're not talking about anxiety disorders here. We're talking about the day-to-day anxiety that you feel that is triggered by the worries in your own head, that is triggered by the overwhelm that you feel in your life. This is anxiety that you can quiet. This is anxiety that you can get control of, because this form of anxiety is all triggered by your habit of worrying about things beyond your control. Worrying about whether or not your boss is going to snap at you. Worrying about whether or not your spouse is going to be in a bad mood when you walk in. Worrying about things that you can't necessarily control. And so here's the thing that you want to do. When you have a worry, for example, being worried about a lump in your neck is a good thing, because it'll get you to take action. So the second that I confirmed and I looked at the screenshots that many of you sent me and I checked it out in the mirror, that I had a little something right here, I made an appointment with my doctor. And then you know what I did for the rest of the week? I practiced the tools that we've already covered in videos 1 through 11. I practiced the tools of autopilot versus deliberate thinking. You see, you worry when you're on autopilot. When you direct your thoughts and you're deliberate, you're now in control of what you're doing. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, go to Mindset Reset, the playlist on YouTube, on our YouTube channel. And on video number 2 is all about autopilot versus deliberate thinking. So I would catch myself when I'd start to think about the lump. And I would go, nope, I'm not going to worry about that because I can't control it. I'll find out on my doctor's appointment if there's anything that I need to be concerned about. Until then, I'm going to not think about that. I'm going to think about this. And so day 4, when we talked about thinking this and not that, so this is video number 4, I used those tools all this week, everybody, in order to make sure that I didn't allow my habit of worrying about some lump on my neck turn into anxiety that I started to feel in my body. Does this make sense? Give me a thumbs up if this is making sense. And by directing my thoughts, so whenever I'd start to think, oh, there's that lump, and I'd start to touch it again, which of course makes it bigger, I would go, wait a minute, hold on, nope, I'm not going to think about this. I'm not going to worry about this. I'm going to be deliberate, and I'm going to think that I'm okay. And I started to train myself to go, I'm not going to worry about it until I have something to worry about. I'm going to make a doctor's appointment, and I will worry about it when there's something to worry about it. But for now, I'm just going to assume that it's totally fine, that there's nothing there, that maybe it's an insect bite or something like that that's gotten inflamed, and that's that. And you know what? It works. It works. And let's say that when I went to my doctor's appointment on Thursday, I got a bad diagnosis. Well, guess what? Then there are decisions to make. Then there are things to be concerned about. I still am going to have to manage my worries, because if I start to allow myself to get anxious about a negative situation, I'm going to make it worse for myself, okay? Your anxiety and your worrying doesn't change the things you need to do to address any problem in your life or potential problem. But worrying and causing yourself anxiety will make the potential problem worse because you are going to make yourself feel worse. So it all begins with you and being deliberate about what you will allow yourself to think about and what you will not allow yourself to think about. Let me answer a couple questions right now. This is from Alicia Nicole on Facebook. What if you live with someone who worries all the time, which causes your spike in anxiety? Oh my God. I can so relate to this because I have a daughter who is exactly like me. And while she practices this stuff and it works, there are times where her anxiety does get the best of her. She's in the middle of the college process. There's always something that triggers uncertainty. Alicia, here's what I would suggest. I would suggest that you, as you're listening to all of this training, particularly in Anxiety Week, that you listen for tools that we're talking about that you can use to help your mom redirect her thoughts. The second thing that I would tell you is you got to be very careful. And I'm glad you're asking this question, because if you're somebody that it has a propensity to go from worrying to feeling anxious in your body, and you are absolutely right, behavior is contagious. So if your mother starts getting all agitated about something, maybe it's you're going to be late to a doctor's appointment and we got to hurry and we got to hurry. What I have found to be incredibly helpful is to be the steadfast one and to come up with a mantra that works with your mom so that when you say it out loud, it's not that she's going to stop feeling anxious. What she's going to do is she's going to be trained by you to stop doing the things that drive you crazy. So I will say to my daughter something like, look, getting worried about whether or not we're going to be on time as we're driving through traffic to school isn't going to make us be on time. And if you keep this up, what it's going to do is make me angry. So I'm requesting that you keep your concern and your worry to yourself because it's not helping you and it's starting to make me upset. And it's interesting, it works for her. And what I remember too, it's funny when I think back to being a kid and being a teenager and having anxiety, the most effective thing that my mom ever did with me when I had anxiety was not to coddle me. It was to basically get frustrated and tell me to buck up. And let me tell you, having my mom be like, knock it off. I remember I was so homesick my freshman year at Dartmouth that I would call every night from the payphone and cry and tell her how much I hated it and how I had no friends and how I wanted to come home to Michigan and I was so far away in New Hampshire and I just couldn't handle it. And after about a week of listening to me and going, oh, honey, she finally lost it with me and said, you're not in jail. You need to pull your swear word together. You need to hang up the swear word phone and you need to get your swear word out there and go make some friends. And don't call me again until you have. And I remember having a moment where I was like this, and then I just sort of hung up. I was like, okay. And I hung up the phone, and that was it. Because one of the things about people in your life, and this is Confessions of a Woman Who Had Anxiety, is we love our anxiety. Because when your mother freaks out and has her anxious moments, guess what? Everybody around her solves her problem. When my daughter freaks out and has her anxious moment, she has trained us to solve her problem. When I freaked out on the phone and I would be calling my mom, I was training her to console me and make me feel better and to delay having to deal with the thing that scared me. She was solving my problem. We love anxiety because it works. It gets you to do things for us. It gets us to not have to face the thing that worries us. So we keep it around. And so sometimes just snapping and being very firm, not telling them to calm down because that doesn't work. I'll explain that in another session, but just being firm and being like, knock it off. You can keep your anxiety to yourself, but don't do it around me. Try that too. All right, let me keep going. I'm really scared and struggling. Tuesday, I have to have a procedure to see if I have cancer. My anxiety is over the top. What do I do? Here's what you do. First of all, you should absolutely go pick up a book. I'm going to make no money on this, so I'm not selling you anything, but it has been very helpful. The book is called The Book of Awakening. The Book of Awakening. It is a book that Mark Nero wrote when he was diagnosed and living with cancer. And it is a book of daily meditations that you read, and I think you will find it extremely calming. That's number one. Number two, and by the way, I'm not saying that because I think you have cancer, Rachel. Notice how your mind already drifted to, oh my God, she must think I have cancer. Number two, worrying about your test will not change the result of the test. But worrying and allowing yourself to live with that much anxiety and uncertainty will cause you a tremendous amount of stress, which will tax your body's immune system. And so there's a reason why so many medical practices, particularly with infertility, cancer, other kind of long-term management diseases, there's a reason why so many of them now have a mindfulness component as part of the treatment. It's because we know the mind-body connection. We also know that keeping your stress level down is a really important thing. And so here's a couple things that you could say to yourself. You ready, Rachel? Number one, you could say that I will worry about this on Tuesday once I get the results, if I have something to worry about. Until then, I am going to visualize myself being healthy. And so if you go back to video number one, where I explained the science of visualization, when you catch yourself worrying about the procedure on Tuesday, lots of unknown there, totally understandable that you're worrying about it, but you have a choice about whether or not you allow that to become your default. What I would recommend, Rachel, is I would recommend that you go out a year, okay? Let's go out a year. So let's go out a year, and I want you to visualize yourself healthy, happy, and cancer-free, okay? And I want you to feel the positive emotion of what you're doing. Maybe you're hiking up a mountain. Maybe you're throwing the ball for your dog. Maybe you're out to dinner with friends and you're laughing hysterically. Now, what's interesting about that visualization is that it doesn't matter what happens on Tuesday. You could either get a scary diagnosis, or you could get a diagnosis that there's nothing to be worried about, that there is no cancer. Either way, whether the diagnosis is positive or negative, this visualization is a year out, so it will work with either scenario. And so you could choose to visualize that. You could also choose a different thing to think so that when your worries are starting to think that scary thing, you think this could be, whatever happens, I know that I won't go through it alone. Good or bad, I won't go through it alone. Good or bad, I got this. So if you can't just think positive, like I'm going to get a positive result on Tuesday, go either way, I got this. Either way, I'm not going to be alone. And do visualizations of you being healthy a year out, because if you're really having trouble letting go of the fear, that if you go a year out and visualize something positive, it has room for the thing that you're thinking that you're afraid of. From Instagram, how do I stop myself from worrying about kids and young adults drinking at night and getting killed by drunk drivers? This was a huge one for me. I worry about this. So there's a difference between worrying about it and managing it. So that is a real concern. That is a real issue that we as parents have to deal with. The issue that if kids are at partying and there is somebody there with keys, that they could get into a car with somebody who's been drinking, that they themselves could drive a car while they've been drinking. And I'm not proud to admit this, but growing up in Western Michigan, we did a lot of that. Very small town, rural area. We were always heading out to Lake Michigan. There was a friend of our family who was killed by a drunk driver when I was in high school. And so I'm going to tell you something. As a parent, this is an issue that I am maniacal about. And instead of worrying and keeping myself up, worrying whenever they're out, and my thoughts do drift to this. I'm not going to lie to you. They will drift to this. You're a parent. It is impossible to not have your thoughts drift to things that concern you about the well-being of your children. But what I have chosen to do from a very young age is to put absolute, critical, non-negotiable blocks in place. So my kids always take an Uber. Always. They don't even drive to parties. That is something that I will pay for because I am so adamant that I don't want them drinking and driving. I also have them text me when they're on their way home. I have them come in and wake me up when they've gotten home. So for you, what I would ask yourself if you continue to worry about it is, first of all, do you have the controls and the agreements in place with your kids that you actually trust? And if not, you need to get those in place and you need to reinforce them and you need to get to a point with your kids where you trust them. And I'm going to tell you something. Your kids just promising that they're not going to drink, that's not one that you can trust. Doesn't matter how good your kids are, doesn't matter what your value system is as a family, kids will experiment. And so you have to have a plan. And so the thing that's interesting about this question is that having your thoughts drift is normal. Allowing it to be chronic is a choice. And there's two things that you got to do. You got to make sure that you have taken the steps to solve the problem that concerns you. And number two, that you redirect your thoughts every time you start to worry. And the other thing is that you got to ask yourself a question about whether or not you trust that your kids are doing what you're asking of them. And if not, that's a different set of actions to take in order to make sure that they really get it. I mean, I've told my kids the story of being woken up by my mother in the middle of the night when I was like in 9th grade and her putting her arms around me and sobbing in the middle of the night and telling me Michael Lang had been killed in a drunk driving accident. I remember that. That is like in my nervous system. I have told my kids that story. And so I have put controls in place that are appropriate for my kids' ages, and it's been working. Does that mean I never worry about it? Of course not. I'm a parent. But I don't worry myself to a point where I feel anxious. If I have a concern, I will call one of them. If I ever find out that they have broken our agreement, they will not see the light of day for literally a year. All right, let's go to Tiffany Winfield Alexander. How does this work when dealing with a loved one with a chronic illness? How it works is you got to choose what you are willing to worry about and not. You will not change your loved one's chronic illness by worrying. And you will also rob yourself of precious, precious time that you have with them while they're here. And there is nothing more powerful than being present and being grateful that the time that you have, and worrying will steal that from you. And so I think it's important to be deliberate about managing the things that you need to manage related to the chronic illness. It's important to be diligent about noticing changes in someone's state that need to be addressed when you're dealing with a chronic illness. But it is a mistake to let worrying rob you of being present and rob you of the joy and the gratitude that you can feel for the time that you have with this person that has a chronic illness. I hope that distinction lands, because it's a really powerful and very, very important one. That does not diminish the real commitment and the tax that it takes on you emotionally when you're caring for somebody with a chronic illness. But what I'm talking about is the difference between letting your worrying, which will not change anything, rob you of the things that really matter while you're with this person. And you can train yourself not to worry about the things that you can't control while still being deliberate and on top of managing the details and any changes so that you take the steps that you need in order to change somebody's care or address something. Okay? Awesome. Getting a few of the financial worry ones. All right. How do you train yourself not to worry about finances? With 3 kids and so much on our plate, how can I stop with the worry? Well, let me ask you a question. And this is going to sound rude, wife, mother, nurse. Does worrying make you more money? Does worrying save you money? Does worrying do anything proactive at all? This is very similar to the piece of advice that I just gave to the person who was living with somebody with a chronic illness. There's a difference between having something that you spot that's wrong and then taking deliberate action to solve it or address it, and wasting time, energy, and your health spinning worries about a situation and also doing nothing to change it. So one of the reasons why, if you're somebody that worries about finances, it is critical that you reset your mindset, is because worrying about money is not going to help you make more money. You need to start to visualize a couple years out. Don't necessarily visualize massive trips or something that feels unattainable. You don't need to be standing in front of a Lamborghini to make a little bit more money and not feel the stress that you're feeling. But I want you to go to a moment in time. This is, again, video number 1, the science of visualization. Anchor yourself out to a time in your life, a year or 2 years from now, where you have where you have financial relief, where things aren't so tight, where you have the ability to save, you have the ability to breathe a little bit, okay? And I want you to feel the positive emotion that comes from knowing that you did the work to change your financial situation. So visualization is a very important thing. The second thing is that I would ask you is, what is it that you need to do that you currently don't have the time or are too afraid or actively tell yourself you don't know how to do it? What are the things that you need to do, the action steps you need to do in order to address your financial situation? Do you need to get a side hustle? Do you need to stick to a budget? Do you need to downsize? Do you need your kids, if they are of a certain age, to get a job so they make their own spending money? What is it that you could be doing to ease the burden? What are the actions? And I'm saying this because what you often find, and what I have found true in my own life, is that worrying about something is easier than fixing it. And worrying about something is, in many ways, something that I used to do in order to hide from having to put myself out there and take the necessary actions, whether it was asking for a raise or cutting back on things that I was spending on that I couldn't afford. That is the real question to ask yourself. And here's the other thing. Since worrying about finances isn't going to make you more money, if you were to stop worrying and if you were to start thinking positive in your ability to fix this, and you were to lower that level of stress in your body, what would you be able to find the time to try? I would start there. Totally start there with visualization and that. Here we go. Your teaching just helped me. This is Lisa. My daughter, 24, is planning to go on a study abroad to Morocco. I'm so happy for her, but my SIL, I don't know what that means. Sister-in-law introduced fear to my experience by telling me how dangerous it is there. I observed my own fear creep or roar in, not fun. I caught it, became aware of the choice I have for how to think. I'm happy for her. Again, it's natural, but not necessary for me to worry. Exactly. So in that situation, here's what I would suggest. If you are concerned about her going to Morocco, okay? Here's the difference between worrying about something and having the worry hijack you and become a default, and worrying like you just did and having that worry be a signal to get deliberate and take action on something. Not action up here, worrying about Morocco, but action in taking steps to address something that could be a concern. So what I would do is I would call the program she's going on and I would have a conversation with them. And the other thing that I would do is I would have I would talk to your daughter about what you need from her so that you don't worry. Do you need a check-in every couple days? Do you need her to text you photos? Do you need, when she gets there, if she's staying with a family, to FaceTime with the family? Do you need to reach out to your network and have a friend of a friend of a friend identified that lives in Morocco? So in the case of something, you have somebody to call. You know, in my, I can think of an example where this put me completely at ease. My daughter, our oldest daughter, lived in Phnom Penh in Cambodia with her grandmother. Now, her grandmother was 70 at the time. Our daughter was in 8th grade, and she was going to live over there with her for 3 months, helping her grandmother teach English. And I started to think, holy cow, am I crazy? I'm letting her go halfway around the world. She's going to be with a woman who's getting older. What if, you know, something happens to the grandmother? What if our daughter suddenly finds herself alone in a country? The grandmother's had a heart. Like, you can see, your mind starts to spin. My stomach starts to panic. Oh my God, you can't go, you can't go. Like the worries turn into a roar. So what we did is we identified a contact in Cambodia through a friend of a friend, and we had a FaceTime call with him and his family before they went. And this was also somebody that the grandmother knew, so that if we had an emergency, our daughter had somebody that we knew that was in touch with her that she could reach locally, so that we had a plan B in the event that something happened. Having a plan B like that is just magical, because you know that you've thought through the concern, you've taken action to put something in place so that the concern is addressed, and you don't need to worry about it now. If there's a problem, we'll figure it out. If there's something catastrophic that happens, we have a plan B. And that did wonders for me. And we also FaceTimed with her every other day, which also did wonders for me. Let me think. Amber from Facebook. What is something I can do to stop worrying? How do I start to break this habit? It's killing me. I'm so glad you asked. Because I apologize that this training has been so long. Because I'm just now getting to the homework. First of all, I want you to realize something. This is a habit. A habit's just a pattern. That's it. And every day during Anxiety Week, we are going to be building on everything that we're learning. So what you're learning today is the connection between your worrying about things and how it triggers your body to start to feel agitated, and that's when anxiety sets in, okay? And when your body starts to get agitated, that's when it usually really impacts your actions. And so it's critical that we start with the habit of worrying. So your homework for today is to simply write down the things that you worry about. And some of you may have 100 things. In fact, in the comments, why don't you start to write for us, what is it that you worry about? Because I guarantee you, as you see people write down what they worry about in the comments, you're gonna be like, yep, me too. Oh, yep, me, I worry about that one. Oh, yep, when my boss gets it, yep, Oh, when my spouse starts drinking, oh yeah, I got that one too. Oh, yep, when my kids are out, yep, yep, oh, I worry about that. Yep, I worry about running out of money. I worry about this, I worry about that. And you'll be amazed how often your mind isn't even right here with you and me. that your mind is thinking about some moment in the future when you're going to lose all your money. Or your mind is thinking about the fact that, holy cow, I haven't heard from my spouse in a couple hours. I wonder if they're dead. Or your mind is worried about what you're going to do on Thursday when you go to that doctor's appointment. Being a deliberate thinker means, whoop, when your mind defaults to something in the future that's negative or something that you can't control, we're going to yank it right back to this moment. And we're either going to visualize something positive or we're going to think this other thing that makes me settle, that gives me control. The first step is writing down everything that you worry about. If you want to take the assignment a step further, you can start to write down things that you could think instead of the worry. Another thing that you could do with this list of worries is, and this is what we're going to build on tomorrow, is now that you have a list of worries, we're going to start to coach you to understand that your worries are typically things that need some form of action for you. They need some problem solving. They need some system in place. They need some plan B that you don't have now that's going to make you feel like that thing that concerns you, you've at least put down something that makes you feel a little bit better about it, okay? The other thing that we're going to talk about tomorrow is we're going to talk about triggers. This is fascinating, absolutely fascinating. We're going to talk about how there are triggers all day long that trigger you to worry and you don't even realize it. Everything from people to time of day to people's tone of voice. And so we're going to talk to you all about going through and identifying triggers in your day. This is absolutely incredible. So Amber, how do you stop worrying? First, let's identify what you're worrying about, okay? Then we're going to just go step by step by step. We're going to coach you on how you identify the things you worry about, and then we're going to talk about what are the things you're not doing. What are the things you need to do in that area so that you have put controls in place so that the worry is unwarranted. And then we're going to talk about triggers. So we've got so many cool things that we're going to be going. Mandy and Danielle, as I wrap up, could you let me know if there's anything else that you want me to cover before I kind of close out? I want to give a couple quick shout outs while we're waiting for Danielle and Mandy to give me a clue on this. Gina Rodriguez on Twitter, I've had to miss a lot of work due to my own health issues, family issues, and one heck of a year. I beat myself up thinking everyone at work is judging me and hating me. The last 3 days, I've been able to say I did what I could with what I had, and I felt so damn freeing. So this is one of my favorite mantras. When I beat myself up over not doing things right or not performing the way I think or not being perfect or not being able to afford something or not being able to say yes to something, here's what I always say. If I could have done more, I would have. If I had known better, I would have done better. I know better now, so I can do better now. Having some self-love, super powerful way to diffuse the way that you beat yourself up all the time. I also want to shout out Todd Nicholson also on Twitter, discovering after a week the real and powerful negative default that had held me back for years, and then crafting the positive thought that now has become a personal mantra. This is truly transformative. I'm so happy to hear that. I also want to give a shout out to Donna. Donna said hello to me in a yoga class this morning. She recognized my voice. She's been doing Mindset Reset, and she said that really thinking about your thinking patterns and how often you sabotage your success, you criticize yourself, you talk yourself out of stuff, and in this week, how often you default to worrying. Worrying about the future, worrying about things you can't control, worrying as a way to not have to face things that scare you. She said it's been the missing link, that missing puzzle piece in being able to truly start to move herself forward. She's known what to do, but the mindset piece is the missing part of the how, and that makes me so happy. Now, in case nobody else tells you today, I want to tell you that I love you and I believe in your ability to change your life, to change how you think, to become a happier, more positive, more focused and deliberate person, and that's why I'm here every day. If you have any questions, put them in the comments. I want to say one thing to our friends on YouTube. You may have noticed we did not stream live on YouTube yesterday, And we're also not streaming live today. And unfortunately, we're not going to be able to stream live for the rest of the program. We have been using a software called Livestream, and the software glitched on us. And it showed up on YouTube as a no signal. So I restarted the stream. And I guess somebody on YouTube flagged that as activity of a spammer. And so they disabled our streaming ability until April. We have appealed it. They have denied our appeal. We have asked the live stream company to please step in because it was a software issue that created this. So I want to thank you for your patience. We will be uploading all of the trainings that we're having to YouTube. So they still will be on YouTube. But until further notice, we will be unable to stream live on YouTube for the duration of this program. If that changes, we will let you know, but it was due to a glitch in the software we are paying for, which of course irritates me to no end, but I'm not going to worry about that. I'm going to think that we are going to appeal this and we are going to solve this problem, because worrying about it doesn't change anything. I have already taken the actions and been deliberate about trying to solve it. So now I'm going to think this positive thing about an outcome instead of thinking the negative, irritated one. See how that works? Just like that. Mindset reset. There you go. All right, everybody. I hope you have an absolutely amazing rest of your day. Your assignment, to recap, was to notice and write down what you worry about. If you want to take that a step further, start to identify what are the steps you could take to solve or address the thing that you're worried about, or put some controls in place. You can also come up with a mantra for what you're going to think the next time you worry about that. All right. And for Rachel and anybody that has a doctor's appointment that is making you nervous, we're pulling for you. And remember, whatever it is that happens, you're not going to go through it alone, and you got this. All right. Bye, everybody. Bye.